Welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's just dive right in. Today, we're exploring an absolute underdog story. We are looking at how a completely despised so-called iron monster defied literally all the odds to become the world's most beloved monument. We are, of course, talking about the magnificent Eiffel Tower. To really get a feel for this story, I want you to try and picture something. Just take a second and imagine the Paris skyline. Completely empty. No massive spire off in the distance, no twinkling lights reflecting on the river at night. It feels almost unthinkable to us now, right? But that empty skyline was incredibly close to becoming a permanent reality. Because believe it or not, the Iron Lady was definitely not loved at first. Back when it was proposed in the 1880s, the artistic elite and all the Parisian intellectuals, they absolutely hated it. I mean, they actively protested the project, calling it this giant iron monster that would ruin the beauty of Paris. We have such a romantic view of the tower today, so it's kind of hard to wrap your head around just how visceral that hatred was from the locals. Section 1, The Impossible Dream, the 1889 World's Fair. So the year is 1889. France is hosting the World's Fair to celebrate the 100-year anniversary of the French Revolution, and the government wants a monument that essentially screams French engineering dominance to the rest of the planet. They got over 100 designs in this huge national competition, but Gustave Eiffel's company ultimately won the bid. But here is the really interesting part. While Eiffel became the famous face of the whole project, the true structural brains behind it were actually his engineers, Maurice Koechlin and Émile Nouguer, and their goal? Completely audacious. They wanted a 300-meter iron tower that was taller than anything humanity had ever built. Actually, most experts at the time said a structure that tall was flat out impossible. Section 2. Building the tower. Construction begins. Obviously, the word impossible wasn't going to stop them. Construction officially kicks off in 1887. And the sheer scale of what they were doing is just staggering. 18,000. That is the exact number of individually crafted iron pieces they needed to piece this massive puzzle together. And how do you hold all 18,000 of those incredibly heavy pieces in place? 2.5 million rivets. Yeah, million! And what's absolutely fascinating is that despite this gigantic scale, the whole thing was put together by a surprisingly tiny workforce. So how did they pull off this impossible feat so fast and so safely? Well, they had a brilliantly structured process. First, every single piece was meticulously prefabricated in factories off-site. Then came the high-precision assembly right there in the middle of Paris. Their safety measures were actually way ahead of their time, meaning there were very few accidents. Ultimately, they finished the tallest man-made structure in the world in just over 2 years. For the 19th century, that completely blew everyone's expectations out of the water. But when it finally opened its doors in 1889, the reaction was totally split. On one side, you had the critics, the public intellectuals and the artists who just saw this industrial, ugly iron monster totally clashing with the classic Parisian architecture. But on the flip side, you had everyday visitors traveling from all over the world, and they were utterly fascinated. They'd climb up, look out at these spectacular panoramic views of Paris, and very slowly, public opinion started to shift. Although, to be fair, the artistic elite definitely held on to their petty grudges. There is this hilarious anecdote about the famous writer Guy de Maupassant. He hated the tower so passionately that he reportedly ate his meals right at the very base of it. Why? Because it was literally the only spot in the entire city where he didn't have to look at it. Now that is some serious dedication to hating a building. Section 3. Engineering Marvel. Defying the Wind. Because, the tower wasn't just tall and imposing. It was a calculated masterpiece. Those iconic curved legs and that open lattice iron structure, they were specifically designed so that strong winds would just blow right through it. Section 4. Surviving demolition and 2 world wars. Now, here is a crucial detail. This magnificent structure was originally only supposed to stand for 20 years before being completely torn down. Let's walk through its survival timeline, because it honestly reads like an action movie script. 20 years after the fair, the expiration date arrives. The tower is officially scheduled to be dismantled. But Gustave Eiffel proves it has immense scientific utility for radio communication, and that utility literally saves it from the scrap heap. Fast forward to World War I, it intercepts enemy radio signals and helps coordinate French troops. Then, in World War II, when Paris is occupied by the Nazis, French resistance fighters heroically cut the elevator cables so enemy soldiers are forced to manually climb the stairs. Hitler even orders its destruction near the end of the war, but the order fails. Through all of that, the Iron Lady survived. Section 5. The Modern Lady, today's monument.
Now, it has some pretty fascinating quirks today that a lot of people don't know about. Did you know the tower actually shifts in height? The metal shrinks slightly in the cold and expands in the summer heat. It's like the building literally breathes with the seasons. Also, it hasn't always been that iconic bronze color. Over the years, it's been painted reddish-brown and even yellow. Oh, and the most surprising fact? Gustav Eiffel actually built himself a private, secret apartment right near the top.
But keeping a monument like this looking pristine is no joke. Every 7 years, they have to pull off this monumental human effort to maintain it. We're talking 60 tons of paint, meticulously slapped onto that iron, just to stop it from rusting away. And hey, that effort is clearly worth it. Today, the tower stands about 330 meters tall, complete with observation decks, restaurants, and that famous sparkling light show that dazzles every single hour at night. Since opening to a highly skeptical public back in 1889, this once-hated iron monster has welcomed over 300 million total visitors from all over the globe. That is incredible. Which brings us to our final thought. The Eiffel Tower's journey from a despised, highly controversial experiment to a global symbol of human creativity is just unmatched. What everyone called impossible became a masterpiece that the whole world admires. So it kind of makes you wonder, what impossible dream might start as a huge controversy in your life, but end up becoming your greatest legacy? Definitely something to think about next time you see the Iron Lady watching over Paris. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.